What is up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. So it's our final NFC free agency recap, our final free agency recap in total. We are just literally a couple days away from the draft, a few days away. So let's talk about the NFC South. And if you were a Buccaneers fan, you loved this offseason. If you were anyone else, you hated it. But we'll get to that when we get to that. So let's talk about this. And for the Carolina Panthers, they finished last in the South last year, so we're starting with them. Their offseason was really weird. It looked like they were either going to probably try to move off Sam Darnold or move on from him. I mean, they did pick up his fifth year, so they have another year for him. But I would not have been shocked if they'd have just tried to cut bait, because I don't think he's their solution either. Maybe they're drafting somebody at 6, but in my opinion, if you can't get Malik Willis, I don't know if there's anybody else worth drafting in the top 10, at least quarterback-wise. They had some decent moves. Austin Corbett, Xavier Woods, Matt Ioannidis. I like those moves. Bringing back Dante Jackson, getting a good center in Bradley Bozeman. These are good moves. These are moves that you need to make. Shoring up their line. This is fantastic. But none of it matters if they don't figure out quarterback. And it really does not. I don't get what they're doing. Maybe they're just going to push forward with Darnold, which I don't know if you can sell that to Panthers fans. I think the Baker Mayfield thing is not going to happen. I don't think Baker wants to go to Carolina. And if you saw that funny thing with Robbie Anderson, obviously I don't think he wants Baker Mayfield to come to Carolina. I like the moves that they made. They're in losses. They lost Stephon Gilmore, which he was one of their better corners last year. AJ Boye just hasn't been the same. He's just he might just bounce around, but he's certainly not the AJ Boye we used to know. He's not that anymore. Matt Paradis, he was getting up there in age, and I understand why they wanted an upgrade at the line. Their offensive line has been pretty bad the last few years. They haven't had a good offensive line in a long time, so I understand why they wanted to make an upgrade at center. Hassan Reddick, he had a breakout year last year. Everyone had a feeling they weren't going to be able to afford him because he kind of played himself out of their price range. He was going to get a big one, so there we go. And again, for the Panthers, I also don't trust Matt Rule. I've brought that up. I don't think Matt Rule is the coach. I don't trust how they're doing things right now. I like what they're doing, and drafting-wise, they're okay, but none of this will matter if they can't figure out quarterback. So, that's just my recommendation. Panthers, decent offseason. Doesn't matter if they can't figure out their quarterback situation. We'll move on to the third place team, a team that also has a quarterback situation on their hands, the Atlanta Falcons. I don't think that they're going to have draft a quarterback in the top 10 this year. I don't know if that means they'll wait till next year. I mean, their roster is pretty bad. Will they be in the bad enough range to get into the top 5? To maybe draft like C.J. Stroud or Bryce Young? Maybe. Marcus Mariota. I don't know why everyone was so on him being one of the top free agent quarterbacks. I thought, he is what he is. He's a good athlete. He can play decent at times, but he's not enough to take you over the top. I mean, obviously the Falcons are using him as a stopgap. I don't think he's their future. Auden Tate, underrated wide receiver get. Fantastic, get from the Bengals. I think he's a decent underrated wide receiver. He was just buried in the depth chart because they had so many good receivers. He's like the 4th or 5th guy. Cordell Patterson, bringing him back. That's huge. He was one of their best players last year, one of the most productive guys on the offense, so it's huge that they brought him back. Again, Casey Hayward, he'll be a lift to the secondary, and AJ Terrell looks really promising. It really looks like the Falcons have a future that they're building toward. I just think it's going to be a while before it's realized, and I think they recognize that. I'm glad that they at least traded Ryan and got what they could for him, and they capitalized on a quarterback-hungry team. They capitalized on the Colts needing a quarterback and a decent-ish return. Nothing fantastic, but Hayden Hurst, I mean, he's a backup tight end, and it's clear that Kyle Pitts is the future in that position, and they're investing all in him. Russell Gage is a decent depth wide receiver. He played all right with them last year. They lost Dante Fowler, too. I think he's just going to kind of bounce around the league as the new edge for hire. To me, I don't know. Maybe if the Falcons draft someone in the top 10, maybe like Carson Strong or Sam Howell or maybe Kenny Pickett. I think Mariota at least starts for the next year, maybe 2 years if they draft somebody this year. If they're looking to next year, then I think if they're bad enough to get in a top 5 pick and draft like CJ Stroud or Bryce Young or one of the other quarterbacks coming up in next year's class, then I think that they're just willing to bite their teeth this 1 year, see what happens, and then you'll get a quarterback. So, it is what it is. It's not fantastic. So this is I'm glad that they're finally rebuilding. They're finally admitting that, look, we're not good enough. We've tried it. It's not working. We're not good enough to get to the playoffs. So might as well just rebuild and start from scratch. It's a shame that all they'll be remembered for in an era that had some pretty good football in it, all they'll be remembered for is 28-3. But at least this new regime looks like they know the direction they want to go in, and I'll give this new regime that. Let's move on to the second place team in the NFC South. The New Orleans Saints had a really, really weird offseason. So they lost a ton, obviously. They had a cap crunch, and they were so far over the cap, and obviously we knew they were going to have to shed talents, and we knew that this was going to be a rough offseason. I think it's just kind of restarting for them. Sean Payton's retirement pretty much signals that they're going to have to start over. In terms of guys they brought back, Jameis Winston, decent one-year signing. Maybe they draft a guy at their position. Maybe they want Carson Strong, or maybe they want Matt Corral. Maybe Sam Howell. It's a decent idea to play behind Jameis 1 year, unless Jameis looked pretty promising last year, and then he tore his ACL, and everything went down from there. Marcus May, that's a good safety signing. After the loss of Marcus Williams and Malcolm Jenkins, not sure on the Sorensen one though. I mean, he probably won't be playing Denver, so I don't know how well he'll do. I thought they were just going to really move DJ Swearinger back there, but apparently they want to go with Sorensen. Like the May one, though, I thought that was a pretty underrated signing. Andy Dalton, he is what he is. He's a backup quarterback. They're signing him for that reason. We know Jameis is going to be their starter at least this year. Teams of key losses: P.J. Williams, Marcus Williams, and Malcolm Jenkins' retirement. That's a huge chunk of their secondary out the door. Thankfully, they still have Marshawn Lattimore, but they better get him some support. And that's maybe why they go defense in the first round. Maybe take one of the pretty good defensive players. Tron Armstead, maybe they go tackle because they just lost their best tackle due to a cap crunch. We knew they couldn't afford him. Miami could, and so obviously he's gone. Quan Alexander's gone too. And then there at the bottom of the graphic, you can see Alvin Kamara just had his hearing pushed back to August 1st, if I read correctly. So I think there's a chance he gets put on the commissioner's exempt list. He might not play this year, which he's the engine of that offense. He's what makes it go. And if he's out, then you're going to have to rely on Jameis throwing the ball a ton, which isn't a good thing. Oh man. Like, they had a rough offseason, the New Orleans Saints. I think this is just the price of having your window slammed shut. This is what happens. Sometimes after that window slams shut, no matter how much you don't want it to happen, it's back in rebuild mode, and it's not going to be fun for a few years. I'll be interested to see what the Saints do in the draft. I don't know if they'll go QB. I think they have other pressing issues that they should address in the first round, like obviously their defense and offensive tackle, because those are much deeper classes, and I would probably go with those. We'll see what happens with the Alvin Kamara situation, but it's gone ugly, which means the final team we're addressing, the reigning division champs, the team that I think is pretty much just locked into winning next year is going to be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They lost a lot of players, but I think they'll be just fine. Obviously, yeah, Tom Brady unretiring after literally just taking a 2-month vacation. Maybe he just wanted to go on a 2-month vacation without feeling guilty. I don't know. But yeah, he unretired, essentially. Because he is not done torturing us yet. Though he is an unrestricted free agent after this year. He also is going to... he restructured his contract, which freed up a lot more cap space for the Bucs. I don't know. Maybe their goal is to ride this out one more year and then see if Kyle Trask is ready. I don't know. Maybe this is last year with Brady. Maybe he plays another year. I wouldn't be surprised if he played 2 more years. But I think the Bucs are just kind of booked in to be champions this upcoming year. At least division champs. I think they're at the bare minimum they're going to win the South. They brought back Leonard Fournette at a pretty decent rate, too. I'm glad they don't overpay for running backs. That would be disastrous if they overpaid for a running back. But at the same time, Fournette's been pretty productive. That forces Ronald Jones out the door. But at the same time, Fournette's been their bell cow. So, good thing that they brought him back. Logan Ryan, he should add to the secondary, which went through a ton of injuries last year. Hopefully, they're able to stay healthy. That should be their goal in defensively. Stay healthy. And then let's talk about Keanu Neal. Decent safety signing. Again, I guess they're just trying to make sure that they're not hit with injuries and they're not prepared. I thought their biggest add, at least in my opinion, was on the offensive line when they went with Shaq Mason from New England. A lot of people perplexed why the Patriots let him go. I am as well, but can't deny it's a good signing. It brings especially because the Buccaneers shed a lot on the line. So, get it while you can. Shaq Mason, that's a good guard, and he should bring a lot to that offensive line. He should at least keep Brady safe. I'll be interested to see what they do in terms of center with what they're going to do at guard. I'm not expecting too much, but hey, at least they made points to add. Again, the Bucs, in my opinion, didn't need to add too much. In my opinion, it's more about just keeping the team together and staying healthy. In terms of key losses, a lot of it was just a lot of veteran talents. Ndamukong Suh, I'd be surprised if he plays in the league this year. Jordan Whitehead, he's out to the Jets. They needed a safety, and they went for him, which is a decent signing for the New York Jets. Ronald Jones, this is simply just Fournette being signed to the deal that he got, so of course Jones is out the door. He would have been excess goods and wouldn't have gotten much behind him. Jason Pierre-Paul, again, he's getting up there in age. I think he might be nearing the end at this point. O.J. Howard, talent is there. Never really thrived in Tampa for whatever reason. He never developed into what they wanted him to be. And with Gronk having pretty much a renaissance with Tom Brady, of course, there's the question of, is Rob Gronkowski going to come back this year? But yeah, I think O.J. Howard is done. And then Cameron Brate shows a lot of promise. And O.J.'s, in my opinion, a better situation with Buffalo. If anyone's going to help him thrive, it's going to be that offense. Richard Sherman, same thing. Age getting up there. They lost Alex Kappa to the Bengals, just basically restructuring their line. So I think the Bucs are going to have some work cut out for them in the draft in terms of restructuring their O-line. Just for the Bucs, it's simply a case of, hey, bring a bunch of veteran players. That's fantastic. But then they retire in 2-3 years. To me, a lot of these teams in the South, it's going to be through the draft that they're going to have to supplement their teams because a lot of them had a lot of cap crunches this year, and now they're feeling the repercussions of it, so now it's like, okay, a lot of these teams are going to have to rebuild their rosters through the draft. I still think Tampa's the undisputed winner here. I don't see anybody else toppling the Bucs unless they absolutely fall apart. I'll be interested to see how Todd Bowles does in his second stint as head coach. Maybe he learned something from Bruce Arians. We'll find out. But that's going to do it for the NFC South. A pretty short one, but Other than the Buccaneers, these teams, there was a lot of shedding this offseason instead of adding. And that'll actually conclude our 2022 free agency recap. This was an insane free agency, more so in the AFC than the NFC, but at the same time, I think we're getting to the point where now we're just looking forward to the draft. Draft will be in a couple days. I'll have something planned for that. Guys, stay tuned. Draft season is finally here. Anyway, that's it for me, and I'll see you guys later.